Hello, this is Aisha, and this is a podcast about interdimensional bonds. When I first wanted to basically speak about this, I wasn't sure if I was going to do it live or on a podcast, but I guess it allows me to have more of a free flowing thought pattern if I was to just turn it into a podcast. So here it is. Well, a lot of many people over ages have always maintained some connection or the other with the spirit world, basically other dimensions. And generally, a lot of us are curious about the afterlife, about the spirit world, though death necessarily, it is a necessity. It is a inevitable aspect of evolution and a necessity, but which most of us have a hard time dealing with, understandably so. So when we tend to lose a loved one, and I have personally experienced that when I lost both my parents on the same night about 21 years ago, I understood the gravity of having to lose someone from this realm and have to accept the reality behind it. It wasn't easy. I guess it's never easy. I believe grief is the toughest lesson that we all learn, and it's not always just those who are living on this side who grieve. One thing I know from having been able to connect on either sides, mostly for work, is that they do grieve too from the other side. When someone passes over and in spirit, they do go through grief. They do miss their loved ones, though they can see and feel us. It's just like there is a glass wall between us and them, and they understand that it will never be the same. Well, that itself tends to be a very difficult phase, whichever side of the veil you are in. And as someone who has been training a lot of people, teaching a lot of people over the years to develop their spiritual abilities, I have learned that it makes a huge difference, no matter who they are. It makes a vast difference to the way they perceive everything from death to spirits, and it helps them to overcome any doubts or fears they have to a certain extent as they begin to explore the many ways they can actually communicate with those they have lost to the other side. It's a great healing. It's a great healing process that many of us need for closure. But it doesn't always have to be closure. Now, just as we have our free will when we are alive, just as we have our free will to do whatever we want within the boundaries of destiny, when we are souls, when we have completed our mission here and return home, we do have the free will to either stay here in this realm and be of any kind of support, including that of having an option to be a spirit guide for one of your loved ones if that option is there, or to leave, go back home to your dimension, wherever you come from. Now, there is no need. There has been a misconception that's been going around, which I personally experienced myself, where people were saying, when a person has crossed over, they need to go to the light. They have to go to the light, or they will not find peace. Now, this was something that I learned was not true. Not all souls have to go back to their dimension to find peace. Sometimes they find it much more peaceful to be around their loved ones. It does not mean that they're not moving on. When they're ready to move on, they will move on. you know, so it's not required that they always move on to the light as soon as they pass, and it doesn't leave them in a state of limbo if they don't. There are some souls who have stayed back and been with their loved ones, waiting on them. Sometimes they can become spirit guides. They can choose. It's an option they're given. So there are many things that go on. You know, once you pass, you're given options. You have the free will to choose. You're not forced to do anything. Now, the other thing that we need to know is one of the biggest barriers to connecting, interacting with someone from the other side is if you are still deeply grieving over the person. That can actually be a distraction. That can actually be an obstacle to from gaining clarity. You know, you need to have a clear mind, a clear heart to be able, free from grief, free from any sorrow or sadness, to be able to hear and feel them from where they are. Because honestly speaking, I mean, if we would like to connect with someone in the spirit world, we have tarot cards and we have all kinds of tools that we can use, but there aren't as many resources that they can use to get our attention, especially because our dimension has much more that stimulates us constantly, that requires our conscious mind to focus on, and this pretty much takes a back seat unless unless we pay attention to it. So you see, the only ways they can actually access us is through signs, and these signs can come through dreams, messages that can come through intuitively or visually through our third eye. And if we are not paying attention, of course, they will try a few times, or your guides may help. Whatever be it, you know, like they have minimal resources when compared to us. When it comes to interacting. Now, there have been many books written about mediumship. There have been a lot of theories about interdimensional bonds. Now, some people are innately able to see or feel spirits much better than most people. And it's not like you have to compare your journey with theirs, because it's not always a pleasant place to be in. It can be very distracting. And I have had these gifts since I was 2 or 3 years old, where I've been able to sense and see and interact with those in spirit. And it's not always been pleasant. It's like you're stuck between two planes. So it sometimes does feel better to not have that all the time, so you can focus more on your mission here. So what I'm trying to say is that there are people, not just mediums and psychics, but normal people who do connect with your loved ones on the other side. And there are the bonds between them that they have had when the loved one was still alive continues just seamlessly, pretty much, but in a different form. So there are relationships that occur interdimensionally. Now, some of you may have heard of astral connections. Now, astral connections is where you can actually meet someone who is either from this realm or another in a lucid dream, or any form of encounter, any kind of experience that you can gain from the astral plane. Now, this could be either during dream, meditation, lucid dreaming, any form. So these kind of bonds actually occur, and there are some people who have the ability or train themselves to have relationships with those in spirit. Of course, there is a very thin line between how you can trust such relationships, because not everything is as it seems. There are all kinds of entities on the other side, and we have to be careful. They can be deceptive. I'll come to that later, but right now what I wanted to say was, if you're grieving over a loved one, it's understandable. Allow yourself to grieve, because it's a healing process. It's a process of expressing a much deeper form of love, the best form of love at that point. And I think that you need to allow yourself to do it. But you need to understand that if you wonder why you cannot feel them or sense their presence, or neither are you able to interact with them, it's probably because of the grief which is blocking that access. So when you are done, you need to clear your mind and accept this transition, accept the situation for what it is, and allow yourself to step into a new form of continuing the relationship with the person. They often would be more than happy to connect with you, and sometimes this can be a very healing episode, especially if it was an unnatural death. And there has to be some kind of closure, there has to be some answers, or some way that both of you can communicate your differences, or any other form of healing that needs to go into it. I think that communication is highly possible, and you don't always need a medium or a psychic. You just need to learn how to use your gifts to be more attentive, to have a clearer mind, to raise your vibration, because our dimension has a particular vibration which is lower than that of the astral plane, and you need to raise your vibrations to meet in between. They can only come so far, so you need to raise your vibration in order to be able to have clearer access to them. So you see, you can either take some courses which will lead you through understanding the gifts that you have. All of us have these gifts. It's just that we need to train them, just like we train any muscle in our body. We need to train our psychic abilities. Now, if there is anything else you would like to ask me about interacting with the other side, I would be more than happy to help you out. And I just want you to know that fear is just a, it's just a defense. And don't interpret the way your body responds to a spirit's presence to fear, because we are existing on a different frequency, as I said, and when the physical body suddenly comes into contact with an unnatural frequency, there has to be some kind of alert system. It doesn't always have to be fear. Goosebumps, for instance, don't have to be don't have to be understood as a fear system. It is basically acknowledging you of a presence. So there is a lot you can learn. You see, you can train your brain, you can train your body into sensitizing itself into understanding the way everything functions on the other side, and how you can improve connections with the other side. So whether it is you trying to connect with your spirit guides and guardian angels or any ascended master, or you're trying to connect with a loved one in spirit, there is always a possibility, and there has to be some form of, patience, a lot of patience, in fact, and to know that with every day we just improve, and we have to understand that this is not something that we do on an everyday basis. So we just have to take our time to understanding the entire process and knowing how our body functions in either sides. When we are in spirit, we do not rely on any of our physical senses. Like when we are dreaming, when we're asleep, we don't use our physical eyes, but we use our third eye. But nevertheless, we still remember dreams as if we have seen a movie. So obviously, the third eye here plays an important role, and it will help you to therefore connect with the astral plane even when you're conscious. So on and so forth. There's so much to learn. There's a world of knowledge to learn about how to, understand the afterlife, to understand the spirit world, to understand the need to interact with your guides. It's your support team, and why not? I think we all deserve to connect with them to improve our lives. It adds tremendous value. It has added tremendous value to my life. So I hope this has helped you in some way to understanding that it's possible for just anyone to connect and interact with those in spirit and your guides, guardian angels. You just need to know how to sensitize your mind, body, and heart. Okay, so it's all about alignment. So I'm doing my best to help as many people as possible over the years. I work together with my spirit guide in teaching others. So I do hope that this has been informative, this has been helpful, and will help you to look at this from a different perspective. Thank you so much for listening in to my podcast on interdimensional bonds. I love you very much. Namaste.